Welcome to the Standard Deviations podcast, presented by Orion Advisor Solutions and hosted by Dr. Daniel Crosby, Orion's Chief Behavioral Officer and New York Times best-selling author. Today's investors expect more than a transaction. They want a relationship. Show how your firm merges EQ and IQ with Orion's VFi 20, a new shareable assessment developed by Dr. Daniel Crosby that provides you with emotional and attitudinal insights into clients to facilitate more meaningful investing conversations from day one. Get started today at orion.com/BFi20.
Hello and welcome to the Standard Deviations podcast. I am your host, Dr. Daniel Crosby, and I'm joined today by Mac Gardner, CFP. Mac is the founder and chief education officer at FinLit Tech, and he's the author of two books. The first is a kid's book, The Four Money Bears, and the second is Motivate Your Money. He's here today to talk about how we can teach kids about money in fun and engaging ways. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Daniel Crosby, man. We've known each other for way too long, man. This is great to join you today.
No, it's been a minute. I still remember seeing you at an e-money conference many years ago and having us do a great little picture with the book. We're here today to talk about the book. You're the author of a children's book. You're the creator of an app game that teaches kids good saving, spending, investing, and giving habits. This is not a job for you. It's a mission. And I know this is the kind of mission that you arrive at through some series of life events, or at least I have a strong suspicion. And I'm curious, what life experiences gave rise to this mission for you?
Great question. For me, really blessed, Dan. I've been in the business for 20 plus years. Been serving people in some sort of financial capacity, either as a banker, trust administrator, wealth manager, insurance, and anything that you can think of. I've been blessed to help people sort of guide them on their journey. And my first book, Motivate Your Money, was really in direct response to the fact that was very fortunate to be working with wealthy people, but didn't have a lot of financial education. And it was almost uncanny. Like, how did you make all this money, but not have some basic ideas and concepts about how certain things work, like IRAs versus non-qualified accounts and term versus permanent insurance, stuff like that. So that was when I started Motivate Your Money. I joke around, I wrote that for big people to be able to simplify ideas, make a lot of this financial services industry easy for people to understand. So that was the first book. And then when I had my practice in Houston, one of my clients came to me. She was on the board of an organization called Jack and Jill, a non-for-profit organization for women of color and their children. And she said, Mac, I love your Mac Nuggets. I love how you simplify things for people. Would you be open to writing a book for children? And that is how the Four Money Bears came along.
Let's talk about the Four Money Bears. This is a fantastic book. My kids love it. It has been vetted and approved by the Crosby children. I want you to tell us about the Four Money Bears because, I follow you on LinkedIn, and it's fun to see you going all around the country and indeed the world and sharing this book and its message with young folks. So tell us about the book. What's it all about? What's it meant? And what's been your experience of sharing it?
So if you are blessed to have children, as Dan you are, and as well as I, you know the experience of taking the kiddos to the store on the weekends, and you do the sojourn as a family to do stuff and pick stuff up. And the first place that kids run off to typically is the toy aisle. And they run there and they want to buy stuff. And so though we may be fortunate, blessed to be able to buy stuff for our kids every time we go to the store, it really hit my wife and I. Was like, hold up, you know what? These kids, and it's not just our kids, it's most kids, period, really have no clue what their options are when it comes to money, other than they know they can spend it and they know that they can save it and put it in a piggy bank. So the whole idea behind the Four Money Bears, the book is the story of a bear family. Coincidentally, I'm Papa Bear, my wife is Mama Bear, and our kids are the baby bears. So it's a bear family. They go to the store, and Papa Bear, Mama Bear sit down with the kids and say, hey, what are the four functions of money? And then most kids will answer and spend, save. But the idea is to introduce this awareness that the kids actually have four options. They can spend money, spend a bear, save money, save a bear, invest money, which is invest a bear, and then give money, give it away, which is give a bear. So The idea is for all four of these functions of money to work together. They create something called a budget. And really, Dan, what it does is it opens our kids' eyes to the fact that they have other options when it comes to money besides just spending and saving. And the earlier they understand this, the better off they'll be long term.
Do you have any especially memorable anecdotes of having shared the book with a classroom or with a child and sort of their reaction and something you learned from that exchange?
Yeah. So remember, my kiddos were relatively young. I think my oldest was 6 or 7. So I have 3 of them, 6-year-old, I think a daughter, 7, the son was 5, and then the little dude was like a year old. So I wrote this book and I said, well, okay, I got to share this with the kids. And so I brought it to my children's elementary school. And I said, okay, what can I do to capture the attention of a bunch of elementary school kids? Because, they're jumping all over the place. So I keep a $100 bill in my wallet, emergency situation, I guess. And so I took the $100 bill out and I asked these kiddos, hey, if I gave you this $100 bill, and all of a sudden these kids see the $100 bill, they go, wow, that's where you go. What would you do with it? And it became a phenomenal exercise in a way to show that children are just conditioned to consume from a very early age. What do you think 9 out of 10 kids responded when I said, what would you do with the $100 bill?
Yeah, they're gonna buy something with it. Yeah.
Toys, candy, Pokemon cards, something, sneakers. And so that is something I call the $100 bill challenge. It applies to adults too, it's not just kids. But what it did is it shows us that children are conditioned to consume at an early age, and that the earlier we can show them, hey, instead of every time you get money, birthday, what have you, and you go and you buy stuff, maybe break that $100 up and use 25 to buy something, 25 to save. And instead of buying those Nike sneakers or what have you, you can actually own shares of Nike. You'd say, oh, wow, you can actually own the company that makes those really cool shoes. And then the other 25, you can give it away. So that's really one of the neat things about this book, especially with families that have children. And if you're a parent that never got this stuff yourself, Dan, like if you never got the education yourself, how do you start the conversation with your kids? And so that's what we've been really, really blessed to see the For Money Bears do.
It's interesting. It sort of occurs to me that there's, it's easy to like laugh at the kids and say, wow, they all just want to spend it. But like you think about, I'm going to admit something embarrassing here on my own show. It's like every time the lottery crosses $1 billion, I'll play, right? Like, so it's like, I never give
250 for me. I let it go to 250.
250. Yeah. So it's like, look, Mac, I don't get out of bed for less than $1 billion. No. So it's like every time the lottery crosses $1 billion, I'll play. And, I'll talk to my buddies and whatever, like, what would you do with it? And I'll tell you, not once has a philanthropic gift ever entered that conversation. Not once has like a reasonable, diversified asset allocation ever entered in that conversation. So in a lot of ways, we're just like those kids. I mean, I think we're sort of a spend first species. And I think if when you're presented with a windfall, it's like, yeah, what are you going to spend it on? Not like, how are you going to invest it or how are you going to give it?
And Dan, there's nothing wrong with being in a capitalist, consumer-based economy. I mean, there are amazing benefits. We know that. We live in it right now. But I think I talk about the 3 R's of our connection with money. And I think it's really important for folks to understand, especially when they're talking to young people. The first R is realization. Someone puts a dollar bill in your hand and you realize, oh, this is money. I can do stuff with this. That's the first R. The second R is recognition of the function. And if your recognition of the function of money is only twofold, you can spend it, you can save it. When there are actually 4 functions, your rationalization of how to use that money is limited, which is the third R. So now imagine you give a child money, they realize what it is. They recognize that they can spend it, they can save it, they can invest it, or they can give it away, right? Their rationalization of how money works for them in the future changes in vast ways, or at least they're actually having the conversation of investing and talking about that as a concept.
So where as a society are we falling short? Because I've had two conversations this week with friends. One of my friends is will not give identifying information. One of my friends is a talented entrepreneur who's worth 8 figures, and about my age, so like mid 40s, worth 8 figures. All of that money is in cash, not one penny invested. And I kind of had the same response as you, totally unadvised. All that money is sitting in a bank somewhere in cash. And then because of the banking, volatility of the past couple of weeks, she came to me and is like, hey, should I have millions of dollars sitting in a bank account somewhere? And I was like, what, huh? And then I had another friend come to me again because of the banking crisis and say, hey, I again, middle-aged person, financially successful in many respects, middle-class person, and say, hey, I haven't ever started investing. I haven't invested in a 401k, but if there's a bank run, would I lose my entire 401k? And again, I was just like, these are upper middle class folks. These are
Wealthy.
Yeah, wealthy people. People with advanced college degrees who don't even understand the fundamentals of the 4 money bears here. Where are we falling down as a society that people have such a lack, such a gap in their financial education?
This is my personal take on it. Financial literacy is just part of the formula. So everyone's trying to get eventually to financial wellness, right? Feeling good about their money, making sure their money feels good, about the things that they're trying to do and reach goals and so on and so forth. So financial literacy is just the education part. The big glaring thing that I believe is missing is the financial capability, which are the tool, right? You can have a bunch of information out there, but if you don't give people the tools to be able to implement this knowledge, it's not gonna work. And so that's why we started FinLit Tech, and our mission is to build a bridge between financial literacy and financial technology. Because let's use, for example, our 4 money bear situation, right? 10, 15 years ago, if we had this book and we talked to our kid about taking this $100 bill and spending 25, saving 25, we could do that. But then the technology really wasn't around to do things like fractional shares and own $25 worth of Nike, Starbucks, whatever. The technology is there now. You see what I'm saying? There's even technology that allows you to put small slivers away and give to organizations, so your giver bear can be exercised. So that's what I think we need to do more of in our society. We're doing it already with banking. There's a bunch of technology out there. I mean, on my phone, brother, I can do banking. I can get a mortgage. I can get insurance. I can do everything through financial technology. But there's not a lot of fintech out there that's helping to educate people.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the big thing, is the earlier, younger people who are already utilizing phones, iPads and technology to do things and play games. Why not utilize financial education and provide the tools to be able to make it a part of their daily life, so that by the time they're 15, 16, 17, 18, going off to college, they've already been investing. They're exposed to that. They've been giving, and they're not asking questions like people that are asking now, who you think should know it because they have a certain amount of wealth, but because they were never exposed to it, they don't.
So this brings me to my, the hard question I was going to ask you on the show, and sort of my unpopular opinion. I'm working on a new book right now, and I don't think I've announced that on the podcast. So I am working on a new book right now. The tentative title is The Soul of Money. I think I'm going to have to change that because there's another book by the same name. But anyway, that's what we're calling. That's what the Word doc is called now. May TBD what it is. But I'm looking at all sort of the positive psychology around money, right? So holism, wellness, happiness, how can we use money to make our lives richer and more meaningful? And as part of that, I'm doing a lot of research into the literature around financial education. And I am like neck deep in this stuff. I've read more articles on this than I ever wanted to. And I feel like I'm leaving that literature review more confused than I came. Because when you look at the research around financial literacy, there's lots of mixed results. Lots of the literature shows no effect, like it does nothing. Like some of it shows a weak positive effect, and a very few show like a pretty dramatic positive effect. But it's certainly not a slam dunk. And I think I liken it a bit to other things we learned, like in high school. Like I took 4 years of French, and right before COVID, I took my daughter to Paris, and I was useless. Like, I mean, so useless.
Yeah.
Worse than useless.
I took 3 years myself, so I'm with you.
And it's like, how could I study this thing 5 days a week for 4 years and not be able to order a croissant? And like, I wonder that about financial education. So I like that you brought up, this sort of, there's got to be a bridge from financial education to the other concept.
To the real world.
Yeah, to the real world.
Yep.
And then on to financial wellness. So how can we take financial education and make it work for us in the real world?
If my 3 kids were here right now, then they would say, yes, Papa, we know habits, behaviors, traits, good financial habits, become good financial behaviors, become good financial traits. And that is something that we did a lot of research when we were putting this Four Money Bears book together. And there's a Cambridge study that came out and said a child's connectivity with money starts by age 7. So by age 7, children are studying their parents' spending habits, which is actually the first financial habit that they pick up. So if we know that habits start early and those habits become eventual behaviors and then become the traits of who you are as a person in your financial life, it's imperative to start it as early as possible, right? So that's why we say K through 5 is the time to start having these conversations. That's one aspect. Balance that, Dan, with the fact that if you were lucky to be in one of the 15 or maybe 16 states now that require financial literacy by your senior year in high school, which is 17, 18 years old. So the financial education process should start by 7, but you're not getting it to your 17, 18. That's a 10-year gap of misinformation and no information. So the idea is to socialize things like financial education as early as possible, provide tools like the Berryville app that we're developing and we're building, which is a financial education ecosystem, which is gamified, because at the K through 5 space, if you don't gamify it, kids just aren't going to play it. People, that's for adults too. So that's really what we believe is a big key, a big aspect of it, meeting people where they are, right? Young people where they are, gamifying the process, make it a habit forming type of game, and then socializing. Look, the reason why language, religion, and culture is so deeply ingrained wherever you are is because it's socialized early. That's just how it is. And so if we start doing it then and providing not just the knowledge, but the tools to be able to implement that knowledge, which I think is vastly different from what's out there right now, Dan. I think a lot of financial literacy stuff is just, hey, here's education. But if you're not doing it on a regular basis, to your French point, you're going to lose it.
When we look at the research on forgetting, right? So it's like, we know that we forget 90% of what we learn in sort of a simple didactic form. If it's not reinforced, like 2 things you need reinforcement and personalization, right? So if I had been going to France on the regular and trying to order croissants, like that would have been personalized. Like I would have needed this, I would have rehearsed it, I would have needed to use it, because I do speak another language well. And I speak that language well because I lived in the country. Like I had to, right? Like, I lived in country and I was immersed in it, and it was personalized and it was rehearsed. And so I think that's the power of, a book that you can read at bedtime, many, many times a year. That's the power of an app or a game that can be personalized and customized to that child's unique needs and then rehearsed, because a simple course is not going to cut it. No. It's just not going to cut it. Based on the success of the book, you just mentioned the app. You created this app called the Four Money Bears Berryville, and I got early access to that app through our mutual friend, and got my kids to play it and got their feedback on it, and they really loved it. It's a fantastic It's a fantastic work. What do you see the future of gamification being with respect to financial literacy, and where do you think you come in there?
I think gamification is an amazing resource, especially when you're trying to get people to do things that they wouldn't normally do on their own. So interestingly enough, when the whole COVID situation started up, I actually took a course, one of these MOOCs, these massively online open courses through Penn State on gamification. And it was a fascinating experience just looking at how municipalities, corporations utilize gamified platforms to get communities to be built, to get folks to do things that they, as I said, they probably wouldn't do on their own, to incentivize people to do things. And I think there's so many games out there already for both young and old that are focused, that have money as a focus, right? You have to earn money, you have to do things, but not necessarily teaching people how to utilize money. One thing you'd love about our platform, Dan, is that we are huge proponents of behavioral finance and the fact that your behaviors drive a ton of what you do with your money. And so what we're going to be able to do with this ecosystem of ours is we're going to actually be able to track. So we're going to teach financial literacy, right? We're going to have little quests. We're going to analyze that behavior. So we're going to see, okay, you know what? This player is spending a whole lot. Let's give them some quests and some quizzes on saving and investing and some of the other things to get them to one, track their behavior and then track how well they do over time, which I think is a big factor in us being able to say, okay, what's the success of this cohort of people? I'll share an interesting statistic. Some of your viewers or listeners may know or may not know, but a child's overall financial success is almost exclusively determined by the zip code they grow up in. So imagine being able to drop a game into an underserved oval community, and all of a sudden we can change conversations that are happening in that household, and then in that neighborhood, and then in that community, and then to be able to see the progress of how the players of this game over short periods of time or even long periods of time manage or handle their finances. So there's a lot of really great opportunities that we're looking at to be able to leverage the game and help people that have probably never really been helped before, which is a lot. And it's not just a black-white thing. There's tons of people that are underserved when it comes to financial education.
Yeah, it's that's a political talking point that I've heard again, and like this lack of economic mobility in the States is so damning, I think, because we pride ourselves on economic mobility. Like, we pride ourselves on being a country where you can start at the bottom and kind of climb your way to the top. And I think that's the data suggests that's less true than ever. But I think that technology can be, there's big systemic problems. I don't want to oversimplify things, but I think technology can be an equalizer in some ways when it comes to the educational piece of solving that problem. I love it.
Yeah, I've heard the term a democratizer, which I think, again, just give people access, man. Just give people access to be able to learn and learn at their level, to learn in a way that they enjoy learning. And so, we're starting off with K through 5, but we are building out modules for middle school, high school, all the way through to just learn about money in a fun, entertaining, in a different way.
Yeah. So, listeners of the show will know that one of my favorite uses of this platform is to get free financial therapy for myself and free parenting advice. And so we're going to use these last two questions to do just that. I have been fairly forthright about the fact that I've been miserable and inconsistent when it comes to my kids and allowance and kind of teaching them about money. I feel like I do a decent job of teaching them the fundamentals of money just by virtue of, who I am and what I do. When it comes to allowance, my wife and I just have not been consistent with this. And so I'm trying a new thing this year. I sat down with the kids at the beginning of the year and set a host of goals with them. physical, spiritual, emotional, intellectual, all the
Love it.
every facet of life. And I tied to many of these, I tied a financial reward, like, what if my daughter and my son skateboard, and it's like, look, if they learn to do a new trick this year, if they learn to do a manual or an ollie or whatever, it's like, I'll give them $20. My son's got some basketball goals. He's a basketball player, right? My kids have reading goals that have financial incentive side of them. Okay, so that not so unusual so far. But I'm also trying to teach my kids about the time value of money. Mm-hmm. So I put a new wrinkle on it this year, and I did a thing that I said, look, whatever money you've got in your piggy bank at the end of the year, I'm going to give you 10% on top of that just for having not spent it. Mm-hmm. And I have kids. I'm not going to name names. I got a kid who spends every money.
He's a spender bear.
We got a spender bear in the house. Every dollar that hits this kid's bank account is gone within the week. And then I have a kid who I do not think has literally ever spent $1. And it's going to be interesting at the end of the year when the saver bear gets this check. That's going to be gets a meaningful allocation, right, to just having money and teaching kids that one of the best ways to get money is to have money. I feel like that's something I didn't learn until I was, adult.
Yeah. I tell people often that your money can work harder for you than you can work for your money.
100%.
And that's a great way to show them.
Yeah. So talk to me about this whole thing. Like, what have you done? What does the research suggest we do to teach kids about the value of a dollar?
So I'm going to make this simple. Dan, you're going to be like, okay, word, that makes sense. All we are at the end of our days, Dr. Crosby, is a collection of stories. Literally. All we are. We grow up and people impart stories into our lives and we impart stories into their lives. Our children, by the nature and default of the industry that we're in, will hear stories about what to do with money, why saving is important, why budgeting is important, what's a stock, what's a bond. And that in itself is a huge differentiator because there are tons of people out there, I'd say a vast majority of people out there, Dan, that don't ever get these stories. The whole allowance thing, we have an allowance program and it vacillates. Sometimes we do it for a few months and sometimes we don't do it depending on, grades. And so we have a grade system and we give financial rewards for that. I think one of the big things that parents can do is just have open dialogue and have open discussions about money. Kids understand it. Do not discredit or disqualify just because they're young. They don't understand the concept of why it's important to save, the value of working for money. I think if you wanted to get real philosophical and get real deep on this, this joining of minds here, one of the big issues that we have is, we work really hard, both my wife and I, we do pretty well. And a lot of times our children become entitled. And instead of having a scarcity mindset, both my parents came from the Caribbean, came from abject poverty pretty much. Dad went to Howard, went to NYU, got his MBA, and that's why we had conversations about money in our house. Mom was in administration for a large corporation. Most kids, if you come up that way, you have the scarcity mindset. A lot of our children have this abundance mindset. And with that abundance mindset, it's, I think, a little bit more challenging to say, hey, look, you've got to work for this money. It's not just managing the money. It's the importance of working for it. It's not just going to come to you easy. So I think the important thing, just to answer the question, is just having stories, having open discussions about money, what it does, how it works, and that'll help a lot.
Yeah, I'm entirely on board with this conceptualization of humankind as just sort of a collection of stories. And that's very consistent with everything I know and observe about humankind. And, I think one of the greatest gifts my parents gave me, I'm a son of a financial advisor who's married to the daughter of an accountant. So we both had some money stories going on at home. It's made our lives very easy in some respects. We met with a financial planner yesterday we actually had a client of ours at Orion wanted me and my wife to go through their discovery process to try and kind of like poke holes in it and tell them what they were doing well and doing poorly, which I thought was very cool. But so we went through this whole process yesterday as if we were new clients of this firm. And it's just amazing the degree to which my wife and I are on the same page about things, just because like we grew up in these homes where we told money stories around the table. The point of emphasis I'd make there is one thing that anyone with kids can attest to is that kids have a BS detector that is like unparalleled. Kids' ability to sniff out disingenuousness is like incredible. And so I think if your money story, like the money story that you're preaching to your kids, deviates from your money behaviors, your kids are going to smell that. So the story you're telling your kids is not only the words you say at the dinner table, it's the way you act every day with your money. Mm-hmm. And that's perhaps a bigger part of the story. But I'm going to pick up and run with something that you said for our last question here. It's something that I think about a lot. You talked about how your parents grew up versus how you grew up versus how your kids are growing up, right? And I think about my family. Like, if you go to my great grandpa, like he was a subsistence farmer, right? Like, I mean, he was a hand-to-mouth farmer in Alabama. If you go to my kids, they're growing up in a very different way. And I get these glimpses, into my kids' financial minds. And sometimes I get scared. Like yesterday, I put in a bid on some Jordan 4s that I did not get. Thanks to the Nike sneakers app giving me yet another L on top day.
But we could put some time on that on another show.
But I was telling my kids, two of my kids really like shoes with me. And, I was telling them like, hey, I didn't get them. And they were like, how much were they? And I was like, well, they're $225. And, my one kid's like, oh, that's not bad at all. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not bad. That's terrible. Like,
No, dude. So, Dan, I swear, if my son Jared were in here, he would say the literal same words, and he's 14 going on 15. And like, what? Jesus, do you know how much these things used to cost?
Yeah. So how, if your kids, we all want better, like no matter how we grew up, we all want better for our kids than we got. And part of that's financial. That's not all of it's financial, but part of it's financial. And so if our kids are growing up with some level of privilege, whatever that looks like, how do we teach them the value of $1 and just like help them understand what the world is really like in a world where globally, if you make 35 grand a year, that's the top 1% of the world, right? Like, I mean, having more than one pair of shoes puts you in the upper quartile of people in the world. Like, how can we teach our kids some perspective and sort of help overcome this privilege, which I think can be damaging when you're trying to plan a financial life?
I think that pressure, that mental sort of path combined with financial technology that makes it so much easier to spend money than it may have in the past, right? Because remember, back in the day, you needed money. You actually needed like paper and coins, and you have to go places. Now you can pay for stuff with your phone. Like, you don't even need to have a wallet anymore. And so I think those two things combine and are why it's even more important to have a focus on early childhood financial literacy and financial education so that your children understand, okay, yeah, I know I can go, and if I work and I earn this, the old 50-30-20 rule, 50% of your money should be needs and 30% should be wants and 20% should be savings. But just one, the knowledge of what those options are, and then two, the tools to be able to implement and automate a lot of this stuff from an early age. I think that would go a very long way in, I don't want to say curtailing this abundance mindset, but at least giving guidance to the fact that, okay, I know the value of money because I know I have to earn it, and this is what I need to do to earn it. And then once I have it and I need to reach certain goals, car, home, trip, traveling. These are the ways that my money can work for me to reach those goals as effectively and efficiently as possible, and not just spending and saving, but the awareness of investing. Think about it. Imagine you started investing from age 7. Imagine you started putting $50 away into some sort of equity portfolio from the age of 7. Think about the runway that person has, where they could probably pay for their own college education by the time they're ready for school. I mean, it's these types of things. You don't have to worry about the strain on our society and Social Security and all these different things. So that's where I think the long tail of the education that we're talking about and the technology that's out there now can really help to benefit people, closing wealth gaps, doing all that great stuff.
Yeah, I want to put a little bit of a finer point on something you talked about earlier. I think we're at a time of great derealization about money because, Dan Ariely's done research to show that, people will steal numbers off a credit card who would never steal a $100 bill out of a tip jar, right? Like $100, like taking $100 from one person to another person feels like theft. It's derealized though when it becomes Apple Pay on your watch or, swiping a debit card or whatever. And the same thing works in reverse. Like it works for criminal activity, but it works in reverse too. It's a very different psychological thing to spend that money on a credit card or to, hit submit on your Shopify purchase versus to like count those bills out or write that check out. And so I think as technology makes money less and less real, we got to fight back with technology too, to educate and to automate, to do all the things that you talked about.
Amen.
You talked about work too. It's like, look, if you got to work, when my kids my kids are still young, but like when my kids get to high school and are working at Taco Bell for a week to pay for that pair of shoes, like it feels a little different than just numbers on a page. So I think that's another thing to bring to the fore. Mac, if people want to learn more about this mission you're on, if they want to learn more about your app and your book and things, where can we find out more about what you're all about?
You can learn more about our Teach Kids Money mission at our website. So if you go to www.moneybears.com, a lot of folks ask where you can buy the book. Like almost everything, you can buy it on Amazon, both the 4 Money Bears as well as Motivate Your Money. And if you want to learn about the work that we're doing to build that bridge between financial literacy and financial technology, you can take a look at www.FinLit Tech, which is financial literacy technology.com. And for those who are out there on either Apple or Android, you can still download the beta of our app, the 4 Money Bears Berryville, so you can kind of kick the tires and mess around with it and have your kids play with it and give us some feedback. We love to hear from you.
Yeah, I can attest that your kids will dig it. So Mac, we're grateful for people like you in the industry out spreading the good word of financial literacy. Keep it up, and thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan. As I like to say, the journey continues.
Thanks for tuning in to Standard Deviations. If you can't wait till next week for more behavioral finance insights, visit www.orion.com. All opinions expressed by Dr. Daniel Crosby and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of or endorsement by Orion and its affiliates, subsidiaries, and employees. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for legal, tax, and investment decisions. The opinions are based upon information the participants consider reliable.